So first things first, did we follow the manufacturer's instructions? No. Did we probably improve upon them? Maybe. Meow and hello! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Caitlin. This is Juniper. And in today's video, I'm going to take you through what has to be the most... Do you want to go? Or you want to sit? She wants to sit. Nope, she's leaving. I'm gonna take you through what is probably the most rewarding DIY I have ever done. The payoff was so good. And this video is just gonna be about me tackling that project, and in particular, what not to do, because I got this idea from one of my absolute favorite YouTubers who actually really inspired me to start my own channel, Alexandra Gator. And it was just sort of like a mention in one of her videos. She did a bathroom makeover and she was like, hey, you can get this stuff that is vinyl flooring that looks like hardwood flooring, and you can install it over your existing flooring, and it's super renter friendly and it looks gorgeous, and it's like a very quick upgrade. And I was like, I have to do that. So to see what I did, and perhaps most importantly, the mistakes I made so that you don't make them, keep watching. Okay, so let's talk about the before and why I wanted to install this flooring. Okay, so I've always loved the fact that my bathroom is so big. It doesn't have a window, but because it's so big and because this is a corner apartment, as you can kind of tell, it gets lots of awesome light. The only thing about it that I didn't super love was the floor. So the flooring was this like linoleum-y, like white tan peppered situation that I just always felt like didn't go with the rest of the materials in the bathroom. I didn't feel like it really complemented the vanity that was there, and obviously my decor was added in later, but I just didn't really feel like everything blended well, and I really wanted to find a way to upgrade the floor for not a lot of money and in a way that would be totally renter friendly. Okay, so the product that I used is by a brand called Lifeproof, and it is their vinyl plank flooring. I'll just show you kind of what it looks like and the color that I ultimately chose. So this is, I think it's called Henlopen Gray. So you can kind of see that it's a thickie, and it's got multiple layers, and it's got sort of the padding underneath. So everything is designed that you just literally have to lay this flooring and you don't have to put anything else beneath it, and it is like interlocking, and it's awesome. So this is the product that I went with. What I was sort of warned against is less expensive ones. When you go to install them and you do the interlocking situation, it's easier for like the little corners and things like that to chip off, which is not good because that sort of compromises the fact that it is waterproof. I found it surprisingly difficult to pick a color. I just knew as I was getting samples that it wasn't looking totally right, and I was having such a hard time finding the best color. And I finally, on like one of my 4th runs to Home Depot, I'm not kidding, just to pick the flooring, I asked to see samples of colors that I had favorited online, and she said, just so you know, online some of the pictures have more blue light, some of them have more yellow light, and so she's like, what you're seeing online may not actually be how it looks when you install it in your particular space. So the best thing to do is to grab sort of a sample that matches your current flooring if it's sitting next to another flooring or other materials in your space, and then go to the sample bay, if you will, and lay things next to each other and see how it looks. And that was super helpful, and that's actually how I ended up picking the color that I did. What I ultimately did was buy 3 boxes, one of each of the colors that I was looking at, and I had to like lay out multiple planks in my bathroom because that was the only way I could ultimately pick. The little squares just aren't big enough, and it was too hard to tell. So I needed something that was going to give me a better idea, and I had to kind of like do this so that I could see what it would look like. So that's my recommendation. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Even if you open a box, as long as you haven't cut or damaged the material, you can totally return it. So I really recommend this for picking a color. For all of the other tools and products that I ended up using to complete this DIY, check out the description box. Okay, so let's talk phase 1, installing the actual planks. So first things first, did we follow the manufacturer's instructions? No. Did we probably improve upon them? Maybe. The manufacturer's instructions encourage you to use an X-Acto knife to cut this, or like a straight edge, whatever that thing. I just say X-Acto knife. Utility knife? Utility knife. I guess X-Acto, it's like dumpster, garbage thing. Not important. All you have to do, in theory, is score it a couple times on one side, flip it over, score it on the other, and break that little sucker off. Here's the thing about that. It did not work for us. We tried to do it. We had, what do you call that square? There's gonna be a lot of that in this video of like people who know tools just like face palming because I don't know the name of things, even things that I used in this project, but it's fine, okay? It's fine, I'm learning. But the little metal square guy, you know? We used that to help and everything, but we scored, I mean, my brother really put some force behind it and we were just finding that so difficult. And I watched a video of a woman do that for her entire basement. I don't know if the utility knife I have just like was not sharp enough. I don't know, but it was not working and my brother already brought his miter saw, so we just felt like we might as well use that and it would just be so much easier. And it was, but it came at a price. When you use a power saw to cut this material, you're in for a treat in that it's gonna make a huge mess. So I don't think this stuff is really intended to be cut with a power saw, and now I know why. It essentially, all of the vinyl just is like flakes. It's like snow. It just goes everywhere. And we ultimately did all of the cutting in the hallway right outside the bathroom because I don't really have a space, I don't have a garage or anything like that where we could set that up, because of course when you cut any material you're gonna have like whatever that spray is, it just sticks to everything because of the vinyl. So it was like stuck to the wall, stuck to our feet, to our clothes. And the thing I forgot to say from the beginning is Juniper was 100%, oh, she's sleeping, can you see her? Oh, hi June. So I put her in the bedroom from the start, both for the power tools and everything. And then of course when this spray stuff started happening, I realized that I definitely made the right decision because I absolutely would not want her to eat any of that. And it ended up taking me an hour to clean up all those little vinyl pieces from the wall and the floor and materials that had got on before I felt comfortable letting June out and being in this space. And also just because I can't stand when there's like a mess on the floor or anywhere. It's fine. So just know that going into it. Okay, so in terms of the actual installation, what we realized pretty immediately is that my bathroom is not, there are not true 90s at any of the corners. You can't tell when you're looking at it, but when you're installing like flooring, you find out pretty quickly. So because we knew that we were not going to remove the baseboards because we were keeping it as renter friendly as possible, nor the transition piece that takes you from the hallway to the bathroom, we knew that for those reasons, and because we had to create a 1/4 inch gap along the sides for expansion, which is very important, and because my brother and I are both perfectionists, we knew we wanted to lay the floor as straight as possible and then ultimately rely on the 1/4 round later to like clean up and make everything look pretty and close and conceal those gaps. It was pretty easy to install. My brother did most of the installation just because he had a limited amount of time that he was able to help me that day. We just felt like it would be easiest if he did most of the cutting and the installation, and then I was sort of assisting in any way he needed. It went pretty smoothly. Like once you get your first row and like a half down, everything from there goes pretty smoothly because it's really easy to like interlock and taparoo and like get it done, all very technical terms. So that was fine. The biggest challenge was the toilet. So I initially was thinking, when I was also thinking about doing this myself, that I'd cut it around the toilet, and I watched a video and it is possible. You essentially create a template, but my brother like very quickly let me know that the most professional way to do it and to get the most seamless end result and the most beautiful end result is to remove the toilet, install your pieces beneath the toilet, and then put it back. And it was fine. But there are some things I learned about this process and some tips I want to share with you. First tip, have a buddy help you. So yes, you could potentially remove and reseat a toilet by yourself, but I think even if you could do it by yourself, it helps to have a buddy to like make it somewhat less awkward, to have someone be ready with a towel if water starts spilling. Like just, I think it helps to have 2 people. My second tip is dealing with the hole, the flange, the place where the stuff goes when the toilet is removed. So sewer gas comes out of there, as I learned after I Googled it. And you're gonna wanna stop that little sucker up as fast as possible. It's not like scary, you'll be fine, but you just don't wanna be like inhaling sewer gas. And it doesn't smell great. It doesn't smell like awful, but like it smells like sewer gas, which is just not ideal. And it also really freaked me out. And so I just like wanted to fill it as soon as possible. It's recommended that you use a rag to just like put in that hole, but I knew that any rag I put in there from this apartment was going in the garbage afterward. And so although it's not very sustainable, I used paper towels because I was just not gonna wash and reuse any rag that went in the toilet hole. And you don't wanna accidentally drop a tool or something into the hole, because wouldn't that suck? So my third is be cautious and prepared if you opt to use a wax ring alternative. So I discovered this awesome product that was silicone and reusable, and that's particularly helpful because A, wax rings are a mess to clean up, and if you don't reseat the toilet correctly the first time and you have to get another one, it's kind of a pain. Also, it looks really gross and I don't like looking at it, and I know it's just wax, but also. So I was thinking, well, I'm gonna have to remove the toilet again when I move out to take this flooring out, so I might as well have something that's gonna be super mess free and easy to install and easy to reseat the toilet on and all of that stuff. So I got a silicone universal non-wax wax ring thing. It was very well reviewed and a lot of people really loved it. It was supposed to work for any toilet, but it did not ultimately work for mine. And we didn't discover that until we were actually reseating the toilet and found out that it just like rocked on the ring. It would not sit flush and it was just not a fun discovery to make. So my advice is kind of be wary of those products. Just have a regular wax ring on hand. They're not very expensive, and that way if things go awry and it doesn't work for your toilet like it didn't work for mine, you have a backup and you don't have to scramble. Okay, so number 4, you don't have to have a shop vac to remove the water. That would be the ideal situation. My brother has one. He just didn't happen to bring one. We didn't think about it. You can use the power of Earth's gravitational force to get the water out. So basically you turn the water off, you flush the toilet, a lot of the water goes bye-bye, but there's still some left. And what you do is just get like a bucket, fill it up with a bunch of water and just slam it down into the toilet, and it's gonna like push all that water out, with the exception of like a little bit left in there, but much easier to deal with when you are removing it, so it's not like sloshing around and potentially spilling everywhere. So you don't have to have a shop vac. And then 5 is to just check out some YouTube videos before you do any part of this process so that you can get more familiar with the type of toilet you have and just kind of get your bearings before you go about doing it, so that way no part of the process is a surprise and you nail it the first time or the third. After we installed the flooring underneath the toilet, we did the last few pieces and it looked so good. I was so happy with it. I was so happy with the color that I chose and really glad that I did the project. And then of course, once the flooring was in, it really motivated me to get on the quarter round, which I really wanted to do myself. So I went to Home Depot and I bought 11/16 quarter round because we thought that was the biggest gap, but it wasn't. So I got the quarter round and I went to just do like a test, and it just like fell right into one of the gaps because it wasn't wide enough. So I ultimately had to get 3/4 inch. So my tip here is just measure all of your gaps to make sure that you get the right molding to cover your biggest gap. But after I bought the first one and realized it was too small, I thought, let's just practice like cutting our angles though. So that way when I get the right stuff, it'll be like super easy. So I'm pretty proud of my performance in geometry in 9th grade. I did really well in that class. And it was like the one math class where I was like, I kind of got this. And didn't always feel like 2 weeks behind. I struggled with these angles. It's just like you have to get your brain sort of wrapped around like what you're doing and how to cut the angles so that they sit depending on if they're like going into the corner, if the corner's going out. And despite being able to successfully cut a return, which is like the tiny little piece that you would cut to put on the end of a piece of quarter round so that it looks, so that you don't have like an unfinished edge, I successfully cut that with a miter box and saw, like a little piece, but I could not correctly cut for the corners. My dad volunteered to help me do it, and sure enough, with help, I was able to successfully install the quarter round. I did do as much of the process as I could. I learned a lot. along the way. Like when you're cutting with the saw, you got to account for like 1/8 of an inch for the width of the saw blade. Things like that I just wouldn't have known if I didn't have a helper and a more experienced person helping me out. We used an air compressor and a brad nailer to install the cord round into the baseboards and then around the vanity, knowing that I'd have to patch it later. You can totally not use an air compressor, especially if you don't have one. So I know that they sell brad nailers that are even like cordless and pretty easy to use. And I also learned that there's a thing called, I think it's a nail punch or just a punch that you can use that's like a more manual option, but it totally works. So that way you don't have to have a super loud air compressor running in your apartment at like 9 p.m. and like disturbing all of your neighbors and your cat. Just start installing your nails somewhere that's less conspicuous. So that way you can work out and calibrate things to get it looking right before you start doing it in a place that's gonna be super visible. Okay, so then it was time for the third and final phase. Yeah, caulking, sanding, and painting. This last part of the process was all me. I did it by myself. So for the caulking, because this is in a bathroom, I did 100% silicone white. This is one of those places where like my amateur was showing, in that I bought the caulking and didn't buy a caulk gun because I didn't know that you needed that. I thought you just like squeeze the tube. There are tubes that you can just squeeze by hand, but not the biggies. You need a caulking gun. So I ended up having to go back to Home Depot to get one of those. You should get a waterproof option for sure if you're doing this in a bathroom or a place with like lots of moisture and such. But you also want to make sure it's paintable if you anticipate needing to paint. My baseboards and walls in general are kind of like an off-white, and my cord around was like a bright, like snow white. And so I knew, Snow White. So I knew I was gonna have to paint it after we installed it and just looking at it. So when it came to doing the caulking, I definitely wasted a lot of product, and I really struggled with the caulking gun that I was using. I think it's a standard one, but I just found it really difficult. It just wasn't cooperating. So at a certain point I just said, whatevs, and I just went for it. The biggest tip that I learned while doing this, after spending so much time taping, I did like 3 different rounds of taping in this project, and especially with silicone caulking, because of the nature of the material, what I did not realize is that you have to remove the tape like pretty soon after you put your bead down. So if you're doing the entire bathroom, for example, do like one wall and then remove your tape, because what happens is it's gross. It's gross. It starts to form a skin. It's not that gross. It forms a skin, and basically what happens, you will have a very uneven looking line. Just take the tape off after you lay the bead and you like get it looking good, because what you're gonna have to deal with later is what I had to deal with. I just used my little X-Acto. Oh, it came in handy after all. That's cute, kind of full circle-y. Aww. So I used it, and just very carefully where you have little peaks, I just like cut the little peaks off, and I had to score it like a few times, and then I just kind of pulled it away. And that's how I cleaned it up, but the way to get around that is to just take the tape off as soon as you lay the bead, and then move on to your next strip so that you don't have to deal with that at all. And so then it was time to fill the nail holes, and I initially bought just like that spackle that starts out pink and turns white. I watched, I think it's like the Vancouver Carpenter, his channel, and he said he does not recommend that stuff because typically what happens is, unlike a joint compound or like a standard wood filler, it's gonna kind of concave in, and it's not gonna kind of bubble up the way you need it to, so you can sand it down and have it look like there's no holes there when you paint. After I realized that the spackle kind was like not doing the job, it wouldn't fill the hole. It wouldn't become convex so that I could actually sand it down. Back to Home Depot to get standard like wood filler. Like this whole part of the process to sand and like get it ready was tedious. I got a heat rash at one point and I had to take off my pants because it got so hot and so intense. I just wanted to be done, and I like found that I was having to keep the door closed all the time. So like I had this like setup where I had like a towel and like the flooring box so that she couldn't like get her paw underneath there, because she really loves to like put her paw underneath there when you're in the bathroom. And so then when I was done, I taped again. And I painted. That is the project. So this is the final product and how it all came out. It looked so good. It looks really seamless and lovely. I think it's a really awesome upgrade to this bathroom and just makes this space feel a little bit more custom and nice. And like I said, I plan to stay in this apartment for a while, so it really felt like a worthwhile investment to me. If you would like to see me do more DIYs, like this video and comment below and let me know. I have some definitely planned. To make sure that you see those future DIYs and all of the content that I have coming your way, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so that you know when I upload a video. Thank you so much for watching and going along this journey with me. If you end up doing this project, let me know. You can follow me on Instagram at CaitlinDoesItAll. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.